Hey, welcome to Watchmen Waiting on the Lord. Today's August 18th, 2023. Today's topic is are the seven seals the wrath of God? Before I get into this, and I just got in from outside, so my voice isn't the best right now because I've been talking. This is what I wanted to know. I wanted to know are the seven seals part of God's wrath? And so I found an article, and I actually made a video earlier today, but I had to erase it because as I was getting close to the end, I realized uh, it was people who believe in pre-tribulation, and that's not my conviction. And but I'm going to read it anyways because it deals with are the seven seals God's wrath. I'm going to read it anyways. It's just not my conviction. And you know what? To me, it doesn't matter. It does matter, but I'm not personally going to hold it against people, right? We all believe in a rapture, and I think I think that's important, and to not to push those things aside, but not to push aside the truth or anything, but to to be Christian to one another, to be good to one another. So before I get to this, I just wanted to read this. I told you in my last video that um, I was going to read you the things that had happened since my last video. So I made a list of things that are happening in this world just since my last video, which was less than a week ago. So the first thing that I saw was a huge chemical plant in Toronto. There was a really big fire. So you hear about all these chemical and tire factory type things going up, all sorts of places like that. Germany had two different storms. I've never seen anything like this before. There was a half a meter, you hear me right, a half a meter, that's 50 centimeters of hail. And pretty crazy. I saw another video last night of Germany in the Rhineland flooded. It's just absolutely flooded. There's floods all over the world. I heard this, but I don't know its validity. That there's like a lot of trains being derailed purposely, like they're finding stuff that like train derailers. There's that. China's second real estate developer has filed for bankruptcy. I don't know a lot about that, but if they're the second biggest, that's going to affect the world. Washington, D.C. flooded. Go look at the videos. It looked pretty crazy to me. I saw in Dubai they had it looked like there was a hurricane there. It was like a huge. It wasn't a sandstorm, but these winds were so intensely powerful, and I had never seen anything like that before. And right now, as we speak, the first time in 84 years, a Category 4 hurricane is going to hit California. Category 4, first time in 84 years. And you better believe that I think it's a judgment. And the people of California, I think they're saying Los Angeles and San Francisco, have 1 day to prepare. Think of all the poor people. Think of all the houses that are gonna. That's all the homeless people. Those are winds of 120 to 130 miles an hour, sustained for long periods of time. Guys, that's just since my last video, and who knows what else happened today. So I'm going to read this. I'm going to take a break before I read this because my voice is like. So I just wanted to know. I want to know, are the seals part of God's wrath? What is God's wrath? And what's happening right now, I think, is judgment. Okay, I think it's judgment. And like I said in my last video, I just think it's. I don't believe in a 7-year tribulation. Okay, I don't. It's just not biblical. And so I just think we're seeing it at a certain intensity, and like from what we see happening, things are getting much, much worse. Just imagine what this hurricane season is going to be like. You see that one down there. Can you imagine what the rest, like the Atlantic, is going to be because of the warming waters? So, pardon me, give me a second. I'm going to take a sip of water. It takes me a while to swallow, and I'm going to read this. Nobody wants to spread false doctrines, right? And so I'm making my point before I read this, that I'm just reading this about the seals. It's the seals I'm making a point about. For the pre-tribulationists, so are the seals of Revelation 6 the wrath of God? I'm going to leave the link too. For the pre-tribulationist, the entire 70th week of Daniel, which, by the way, the 70th week, there is no 70th. Everything was one. There is no separated week. Sorry. The entire 70th week of Daniel is the wrath of God. For the pre-tribulationists, the entire 70th week of Daniel is the wrath of God. That therefore means the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls are all the wrath of God. Is that an accurate understanding? For several reasons, the seals can't be part of the wrath of God spoken so frequently in Scripture. Number one, the historical argument. I'm out of breath. In the times before the advent of modern usage of books and after the use of cuneiform writing and papyrus, scrolls were used as the medium for recording most information. Scrolls were most often vellum, leather, or some form of rolled paper. To keep the contents of the scroll from the eyes of those who it was not intended, the scrolls were sealed with one or more seals, and they were usually made of wax, beeswax. The seals were always on the outside of the scroll, never on the inside, where they would be encountered as one unrolled the scroll. That means that all the seals must be broken before the contents can be exposed. This is a picture we have in Revelation 5 when we are introduced to the scroll. In Revelation 6, we have the breaking of the seals of the scroll. It's only when the seventh seal is broken, all seven, that the contents of the scroll can be exposed. Therefore, since the wrath of God begins at the breaking of the seventh seal, the seals cannot be the wrath of God. So I guess that kind of answers the question, but it goes further. So number two, the biblical logical argument. The question needs to be asked: if the entire 7th week of Daniel is the wrath of God, as pre-tribulationists insist, why are believers who are promised exemption from the day of the Lord's wrath present during this time? There must be a division during the 70th week where believers are present and then absent as promised. In Revelation 12, the reader is in an interlude that begins with chapter 12:1 and concludes with chapter 15:4. The focus for this interlude is the midpoint of the 70th week. Like I said, I don't believe, but in Revelation 12:12, we are instructed regarding the casting out of heaven of the devil, who has come down having great wrath. In 12:17 and 13:7, we are clearly told that the wrath of Satan is subsequently poured out on the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. In other words, during the time of Satan's wrath, when Antichrist exalts himself, he persecutes the saints. Clearly, there are two wraths spoken of during the 70th week of Daniel, and it's during the wrath of Satan through Antichrist, when believers are persecuted. Satan's wrath is depicted in the 4th and 5th seals, and prior to the day of the Lord's wrath, which begins with the breaking of the 7th seal. In Isaiah 2:11 and Ezekiel 38:23, verse 23, God tells us that he alone will be exalted in the day of his judgment that begins with the first trumpet. In 2 Thessalonians 2, Paul explains the man of lawlessness, the Antichrist, will exalt himself just prior to the day of the Lord. So that poses a problem. Pardon, give me a second. I got to take a sip of water. I've been out for quite a while. I was out selling beeswax candles, going door to door in the rain. If God is going to exalt himself during the day of the Lord, Antichrist can't exalt himself at the same time. And B, if the entire 70th week is the wrath, so this is a good point. If the entire 70th week, that 7 years, is the wrath of God, then how is it possible that the Antichrist exalts himself during the time that's supposed to be when God exalts himself? The answer is that he can't, and he doesn't. Therefore, we must conclude that there must be two time periods in view with the 70th week of Daniel, when Antichrist exalts himself and when God exalts himself. Since God exalts himself during his day of the Lord wrath, which begins with the breaking of the 7th seal, the seals which precede the time of God's wrath cannot be included in the time period when God alone exalts himself. In Revelation 6, we're introduced to the seals of the scroll. The 6th seal is clearly marked by the often repeated indication of the imminent day of the Lord, the wrath of God. So see, you can see I'm searching. I'm really searching. I want to know what's going to happen. How long is the Great Tribulation going to be? And I see it happening. It's happening right now. The judgment's happening. Take a look around the world. Things are just getting, and I understand, someone's going to say, you don't know how bad it's going to get. Yeah, I do. I do, because I've read the Bible. And, what would you call this stuff that's happening right now? Nothing? I don't think so. Tell that to the people who are dying right now and are being flooded, like whole cities. Where was I have to read that again. In Revelation 6, we're introduced to the seals of the scroll. The 6th seal is clearly marked by the often repeated imminent day of the Lord, indication of the wrath of God. In Revelation 6:12, we see the appearance of this announcement on the onset of God's day of the Lord wrath at the 6th seal. Following the 6th seal is the 7th, which is open beginning in chapter 8. Between Revelation 6:17 and Revelation 8:1 is Revelation chapter 7. In Revelation 7, we clearly see that the rapture takes place. So that's where I kind of, I'm just reading this. Sometime during the second half of the 70th week of Daniel, it's important to note that the wrath of God doesn't begin until the 7th seal is opened. This ushers in the 7 trumpet judgments. the wrath of God spoken in Revelation 6:17. His wrath begins with the first trumpet, judgment, not the seals. A final note is that in the first 3 seals, so my voice is going. The disasters are more of a natural phenomenon. So a final note is that in the first 3 seals, the disasters are more of a natural phenomenon. Beginning with the trumpet judgments, they are clearly of a supernatural nature, affected by angels and usually associated with fire. Although Jesus Christ is clearly in control of all end time events, it's equally clear that the wrath of God doesn't begin with the seals. The world will run its course, albeit in an intensified way, once the 70th week begins. So I believe that those have already passed, right up to the sign of the sun, moon, and stars, when the natural lights of the universe will go out. Following this event will be the worldwide visible return of the Lord, as far as the east is from the west. And then the day of the Lord, the wrath of God will begin. So, I came across this because I've been looking. I want to know, because I just want to know, right? I just want to know. Everyone wants to know all these answers, and so I came across this and I decided to read it. So, what else was I going to say? It's hard to look at what's happening right now. Number one, it's, for one thing, like I try to talk about it with my family or some people, like acquaintances, and it's hard to do that. Yeah, people don't want to believe this stuff, no matter how much no matter what happens, it doesn't matter. Like, there could be a flood in every U.S. and Canadian city. All the forests could be on fire, and they still won't understand. So it's really tough, and so, and so, my whole point in this is that, I was caught in, and I'm not going to make about this, but I was caught in pre-tribulation rapture, and I don't have anything against people who believe in that, because that was me once. It says at the last trump. I don't think that could be any more clear. At the last trump. There's much more to this, but but I just want to ask if you guys can pray. I don't want to say their name, but I'm just asking if anyone who comes across this video can say a prayer. When I go door to door and sell my candles, I do that first, and then after that I'll say, I'll say, can I ask you a personal question? I try to talk to people about God, and I try not to agitate them. And I came across a person that I know, and they're really, like, a really good person. And I asked him what he believed and stuff. Anyways, I'm just asking you to pray so he can open his eyes a bit more. He sees what's happening in the world. And this particular person, I want you to pray for me, so he can come to Jesus Christ. So I told him, I said, he is the way, the truth, and the life, and that none of these other people, Buddha and Islam and all that, they didn't promise the things, and no one else came to this world saying, I am God. And I'm not talking about all the false people since, because he's the only one who did miracles, and all the prophecies are about him, so it's kind of hard to deny. Thanks for watching today's video. Please say a prayer. I just want this person to see and come to Christ.